when we know what we want, who can help us, and how best to get that done in alignment with our meaning and the timing and risk tolerance, that clarity will absolutely clear, no pun intended, the interference between us and what already exists. Today's takeaway of the day, and I will start off with my takeaway of the week, of the month. It doesn't matter which one it is. And the takeaway that I had was an understanding of the reconciliation of the human experience with the infinite. And somebody had asked me about where they were at. And the takeaway was that we need to not only understand the human experience itself, the incremental time that we get within the time the heart starts and the time it stops, this 24-hour period, which is very critical in understanding the human experience, the non-negotiable behavior, non-circumstantial, hybrid negotiable, and then negotiable behaviors that exist in it. But so many people get confused in how that human experience reconciles with this infinite, inspired, whether it be spiritual, theoretical, philosophical, or religious experience that people have, that has infinite past, present, and future, that reconciles, remembers, and recollects all that ever was and will be, the more than enough of everything, the infinite, abundant, unified system that we belong to. And my takeaway was that we have to segment within each of these periods of time what the human experience is. Is it the human experience of sleep? Is it the human experience of health? Is it the human experience of family? Is it the human experience of finance? Is it the human experience of faith? Is it the human experience of time? Is it the human experience of relativity, which is the meaning that we give that time, present, past, that limits our future? And so understanding, in the best analogy I can have being a sports person, is golf. Too many people think that this experience and the activities within the experience and the intentional and definite purpose within that experience is specifically aligned with the infinite itself, and your experience is automatic, and it's not. It's like playing golf. So if you start your first job, manage your timing and risk tolerance and your expectation that you're just starting out. It's like going to the range for the first few weeks or first few months. You can't expect to be Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, or Scotty Scheffler, which are three of the greatest golfers around. And I see, especially young people that work with us, and for other people, they don't understand and have the awareness that I am where I'm supposed to be. And yes, I should be doing my best, learning lessons and having fun doing this, but I should manage my own expectations by the timing and risk tolerance that I've only been playing X for a few weeks, months, or even a couple of years, comparatively to people that may have been playing in this space for longer periods of time. Now, to that measure, there's great opportunity because technology moves so fast, so that there are people that may, in their human experience, been utilizing AI for 6 years, even though they have only been in the business experience for 6 months. And so as we elevate the awareness in this takeaway of reconciling the human experience with the infinite and being realistic with our human experience, and then that allows us to ask people for help and help other people get to where they want to be, which is the fastest way to get to where they want to be. So that was my long-winded takeaway, but it is an epiphany for me to analyze and analogize the human experience as if it was the same as a sport like golf that just takes a certain amount of intention and practice and consistent behavior in order to effectuate greater acceleration, aggregation, and compounding of the outcomes that we desire. So anyways, Nick, I hope you got that. Now, I want to get your takeaway from the Well-Oiled Machine podcast. I know that was your first nationally syndicated podcast. We have lots of room for improvement, progress, not perfection, but your talent certainly was amplified and people got a good look at how you can handle things. Obviously, we need to create a better platform for teaching people what it's like to run a well-oiled machine. I wish people could follow us around and really get the insight. And that was the idea of the Well-Oiled Machine podcast with the Nick Awam. Anyway, Nick, what's your takeaway for the month?
Absolutely. So my takeaway actually has everything to do with what is the Well-Oiled Machine podcast. And so the takeaway is nothing changes if nothing changes. And I mean that in the sense that, of course, yes, that applies to many different realms of what is human behavior. But for me, right, I obviously help moderate all of our VIP dinners and some of our masterminds, and of course, even here Clubhouse on training every single week. And I've
Nick, are
thought for
you are you on? I don't think people can hear you on Clubhouse. Should I be holding this up?
You're totally good. I have an earphone in and I can hear myself on Clubhouse as
Okay,
well.
good.
It's coming through your phone. Yep. So with that said, through all the moderation and the opportunities that you've blessed me with, I've always had it in my mind of why haven't we started a podcast, you and I? Right. And so for me, nothing changes if nothing changes in terms of even asking for help and asking for the opportunity in the first place. And so that was my takeaway of the month, of nothing changes if nothing changes, in the sense that I had to make a change by actually asking for the opportunity in order to be able to receive it. And of course, that's exactly what I got. And I could not be more excited for episode 2 of the Well-Oiled Machine podcast, as of course, every single Tuesday, we're going to be going live, picking a day within our calendar and depicting the subtleties of success, how we manage time, and of course, making different subtleties of success in terms of changes week by week. So of course, as you tune in, please reach out to both David and myself directly, David at dmeltzer.com and Nick, N-I-C, at dmeltzer.com, to provide any and all feedback as how we can improve and how we can make it even more engaging for everyone in our community. So that is my takeaway of the month. And now we want to turn it over to our incredible community. I'm going to go live on Clubhouse for our first guest in terms of sharing their takeaway. And I know we have Mike, who is patiently waiting. So Mike, it's great to see you here, my friend. Happy Friday. Feel free to unmute yourself and share that takeaway.
Good morning, fellas. How we doing?
Awesome, man. How are you?
Doing good. So my takeaway is this: is for the month of May is clarity creates acceleration. So my biggest thing from that is getting really specific of what you want, why you want it, and who can help you within that as well. Because I feel like I can fall in the trap of moving too fast, but not being very clear. And I feel like the more clear you are, that clarity is what really creates that acceleration. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, understanding that awareness, clarity will help with the definiteness of purpose. Because when we know what we want, who can help us, and how best to get that done in alignment with our meaning and the timing and risk tolerance, that clarity will absolutely clear, no pun intended, the interference between us and what already exists. And so in the mechanism of understanding behaviors, the clearer we are on the behaviors that get us to where we want to be or better, the clearer we'll be on the behaviors that interfere with it. And when we can dissipate, dissolve, shorten the distance of resistance between us and where we want to be, we have a greater acceleration and compounding impact on the outcomes that we desire or better. And that clarity allows us to truly distinguish behaviors, and good behaviors should be defined as behaviors that are aligned with where we want to be or better. Bad behavior is those behaviors that are interfering with where we want to be. Your good behaviors are not everybody's good behavior. Your bad behavior is not everybody's bad behavior. There's many people who your bad behavior is good behavior and your good behavior is bad behavior because you have a different divine direction. You have a different definiteness of purpose. They have different clarity in where they want to be or better, which allows them to distinguish and evaluate the behaviors that they have to accelerate towards where they want to be or better, not where you want to be or better. And so in this recognition, this recollection, in this oneness, the unity of understanding that it is clarity and elevation of awareness, which was, by the way, dictated by your frequency or vibration, that allows you to be at ease, that allows you to continue to accelerate, aggregate, and compound exponentially the outcomes that you desire or better. And so if you don't have clarity, it's because you have interference of what you're saying, what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, or what you're believing. And in all 5 levels of that definiteness of purpose and all 5 levels of that intention, we can start deciphering what it is we're doing to interfere with our potential, with our better self, with our exponentiality of outcomes that we desire or better. And so using clarity as a quantifiable measurement or criteria of understanding what we're doing to interfere with it is a great mechanism for that acceleration. And that's a terrific takeaway, Mike. And I'm glad that you are in the pursuit of your potential and clarity is coming your way. It'll give you a greater spectrum of resonance, a stronger signal, and of course, a clarity of a definiteness of purpose. All right, we are moving right along. So many different people have takeaways for the month. We are excited to have you in here. If anybody would like the takeaway a month guide or exercise or my book, just email me. If you haven't joined our private group, you definitely want to get the information on that. We are in 200 cities a year in person, as well as virtually every Monday to help one another, know people help one another. I help personally every Monday with not only answering questions, but also making introductions. So please join our private group. Nick of WOM, the well-oiled machine superstar, who's up next with their takeaway of May.
Absolutely. I'm going to actually switch it up here and we're going to take a takeaway from online and then we'll come back here live on Clubhouse. So once again, just taking a takeaway online and then we'll come back live here in the Breakfast with Champions for Clubhouse. And this takeaway is coming from Camille. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this, David. She says, my takeaway of the month for the month of May is that there's nothing that is as bad as it looks. I'm practicing to silence my inner critic and truly taking action. So thank you so much, Camille, for sharing with us. And David would love to hear a few thoughts as it pertains to Camille's takeaway.
Yeah, the takeaway of May is understanding that the understanding of nothing is as bad as it looks. I, first of all, changed that to nothing. Everything is better than it looks. And it really understands the wisdom that we're seeking and the faith that we need to have in order to find how everything is better than it looks. There's no punishment involved. And that even though there's no evidence or the evidence is contrary to where we want to be, that's an indicator. That rejection is a redirection to something bigger and better because you're protected, promoted, loved, and perfected. And so there's a combination of seeking wisdom that makes things better, but it also is having faith that you're protected, promoted, loved, and perfected by an omniscient, all-powerful, infinite source that's protecting you at all times. So this rejection or the evidence that's not there or contrary to where you want to be is actually a good thing. And so as we quiet the inner critic that is an exaggerated, amplified critic that perpetuates and grows arms and legs as you put your intention into the criticism, the interference, the doubt, the fear, the reaction to it, it just builds more reaction to it. So as your inner critic tells you that there's no evidence or the evidence is contrary to where you want to be, it starts growing arms and legs and it actually starts materializing and monetizing. And so as you add energy to the critic gets stronger and your performance gets weaker. And so we need to silence the inner critic when it appears there's no evidence or the evidence is contrary to where we want to be, by looking and seeking wisdom, by asking for help, by finding the light, the love, and the lessons, by forgiving ourselves for the mistakes, setbacks, and failures, and focusing in on the redirection of where we should be or better by learning those lessons and moving forward in a positive manner. And so, yes, nothing is as bad as it looks. I would take it to the next level and say everything is better than it looks because I'm protected, promoted, loved, and perfected. And if I seek the wisdom in an intentional manner, I'm going to get there even faster, bigger, and better than I can imagine. What a great takeaway of the May. And we are filled and enlightened to be here today in May for the takeaways of the day of May. Anyway, Nick, what do you got? Who's up next?
Absolutely. We're going to go back over to Clubhouse as we have the lovely Colleen who is patiently waiting. Colleen? Always great to see you here. Happy Friday. You are killing it. Turning to Breakfast with Champions this morning after the session earlier with Adam Rosen. So thank you again for all that you do, but feel free to unmute yourself and share that takeaway.
Thank you so much. Happy Friday. Glad to be back. Okay. My takeaway from this week is recovery is strategic, not optional. With all the different ways that people could be recovering, whether it's just, taking a second in front of their computer to close their eyes, breathe in deep, or focusing in on, what's not working for their sleep. I really loved that after, my little guy had his stitches this week and was in serious need of some actual recovery just to get back in balance.
What a great takeaway. It's interesting because sleep itself is for a purpose of recovery and access of information. In the aspect of stopping and dropping and rolling, when we have circumstances that cause us to be afraid, like our child getting hurt, we look for the clues and the patterns of how we react to fear. In that incident, you're pretty much, what you're afraid of. But most of the time that we react to fear, we don't know what we're actually afraid of. There's too many trillions of variables and too much time and lapse of time between the actual reaction to fear and what we actually are afraid of, the pre-life traumas or the womb trauma or the natal trauma, prenatal trauma, toddler trauma, all these different things. And so your son, Des, will probably have to deal with, his trauma from falling and needing stitches. But more importantly, it's great that you're understanding that within the context of fear, when I'm afraid, I react to it. And I evoke the ego when I react to that fear. So it manifests itself or is instant and obvious with needs that we perceive in our life. So it could be a need to be offended, or a need to be right, or a need to be anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, resentful, a need to be inferior, a need to be superior, a need to be separate, a need to be worried. And as we start to elevate our awareness into the patterns of how we react to fear, whether fear is present and obvious, or whether fear is hidden into multiple lifetimes and traumas that we don't remember consciously, it doesn't matter, because it still will evoke an instant and obvious clue, an instant and obvious pattern, so that we make better choices. And that choice that you make is to recover and access information to shorten that distance of resistance or reaction of fear when our child gets hurt. And when we do that, we exponentially start spending more time in ease, not dis-ease. And whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, or emotionally, the more time we spend at ease, the better our experience and journey will be. The better our relationships will be, the better our finances will be, the better our health will be, the better our sleep will be. And so although sleep is obviously a long period of time, the longest period of time that we spend every single day in the habitual nature of recovery and access, notating that the more that we recover, the better we perform, but the more we access energy and the more we access information, the easier life is. And so I think these traumatic, obvious experiences that evoke fear and the reaction to fear are healthy to practice when fear is not obvious, when it is past life trauma or womb trauma or toddler trauma that is causing us to have a need to be right, offended, separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, resentful, worried, etc. Because most people spend their life with a need to be offended, need to be right, the need to be separate, inferior, superior, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, resentful, and worried. And those activities cause dis-ease. And dis-ease cause us to accelerate in the wrong direction, or at least interfere with us moving in the right direction. It interferes with our acceleration, our aggregation. It accelerates the interference of the exponentiality that an expanding universe that's infinite and abundant, that is whole, it creates those separations, and we don't get to where we want to be or better when we want to be there or better in the divine direction. We stick into detours, not divine detours. So we stick into rejection, not redirection. And then we have, of course, the divine time, which allows us to be at ease. When we truly have an apparent and obvious acknowledgement that everything comes at the right place at the perfect time, unprotected, promoted, loved, and perfected, things get easy, and it dissipates the dis-easy. And I personally am sorry that you had that struggle and that fear, but at least you're not wasting the struggle or the fear, that you're learning about how do I recover from fear, from the reaction to fear, And how do I access the infinite information and energy that's available to me so I make the most of it by dissipating the amount of dis-ease and putting myself and, by the way, my child at ease. What a great lesson. I'm sorry it had to come that way, but I appreciate the fact that you didn't waste that struggle. So many parents have and will continue to do. So thank you, Colleen, for your vulnerability and sharing that incident with us. Thank you. All right. Remember, everyone, if you want the information, books, guides, exercises, you got to join our private group. Please, david@dmeltzer.com. We'd love to have you. All right, Nick of WAM, what's going on?
Absolutely. We are about halfway through what is the second quarter here of this incredible Friday training. And our next friend to share their takeaway of the month is we have Tracy here, who's been patiently waiting. So Tracy, it's great to see you. Happy Friday. Feel free to unmute yourself and share away. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you, Nick, and congratulations on your podcast.
Thank you.
Hey, David, Breakfast with Champions. So my takeaway actually comes from David's Napoleon Hill Institute talk this week. And that is, you're capable more than you think. Because oftentimes we limit ourselves and we think we're not ready, or we think we're not good enough. We think we're not capable of something, but we're capable of more than we think. And then the other takeaway has to do with creating an emotional expense column, which I think is very, very profound. So those are my takeaways. We're capable of more than we think, and creating that emotional expense column.
I love that. And, thank you for acknowledging those two different takeaways, which I have instituted into my consistent, persistent pursuit. And, one, understanding the limitations that we put on ourselves by relativity. Relativity, its definition, is the meaning that we give our past. And we have so many failures, setbacks, mistakes, void, shortages, and obstacles, defining moments, historical relevances that interfere with our self-image, with our imagination, and we never will overachieve our own self-image. And if we start to construct and understand the power of relativity and the power we have on relativity, because we give meaning to everything we see, including our past, mistakes, setbacks, failures, void, shortages, obstacles, defining moments, and historical relevances of the past. And so if we can utilize a practice of relativity, of redefining the meaning of our past and aligning it with where we want to be, we then break through the limitations that we have put on our imagination or our self-image, reminding ourselves, I'll never overachieve my own self-image, so I need to constantly expand that self-image. And I can take variants of defining moments in my life and the failures and setbacks and mistakes of schools I got rejected from undergrad, law school, business school, to losing everything, including my mom's home, where I was able and capable through practice to change the relativity of those defining moments of my life, from being punished to being protected and promoted, loved and perfected, to expand my own I am by reducing the limitations that I put on myself by those failures, setbacks, mistakes, defining moments in my life. And so I want everybody to think about, am I aligned with the meaning of my past? Am I aligned with the relativity that I give it? Am I taking control and accountability in my life by giving the meaning that I want to things in relationships, business, events, situations, content? Am I aligning it with where I want to be or better? Am I utilizing even my inner thoughts, words, beliefs, and feelings to align with where I want to be or better? Or is it interfering with it? And so that first takeaway is crucial and critical in your own growth and the expansion of your own self-image, which you never will overachieve. The second one is a newer takeaway, great takeaway for me, when you mentioned the emotional expense column. I started utilizing that in an Excel sheet because I started utilizing the value of my time. So my time's worth $5,000 an hour, which I equate from how much money I make down to an hour. And I realize that every hour of my day is worth $5,000, for example. Then I need to quantify the emotional expense, the interference that certain events, situations, relationships, employees, partners, vendors, associates, channel partners, opportunities are taking away from me. Because if I'm emotionally interfering with my productivity, with my accessibility, with my gratitude, there's an actual quantitative expense in that. And I can take an employee that makes $250,000 a year and see and equate about $1 million of revenue to that employee. But if they're creating an emotional interference between me and them, me and my partners, my vendors, my associates, my employees, my family, and I can actually look and see how much time I'm spending emotionally interfering with where I want to be. So, for example, if it's every day, then I know it's costing me $150,000 a month. If it's an hour a day that I'm worried, anxious, frustrated, angry, guilty, separate, inferior, superior because of this employee, even though they make me $750,000, they're losing me 150,000 times 12. I actually am losing money because if I wasn't interfering with my own potential, I could make more money by getting rid of that person and hiring someone else. And so I think it's important for the things that we spend the most time on that have an emotional expense to be very clear, number one, on the quantitative value of every hour that we spend, whether it's $5, $50, $500, or $5,000 an hour, but also to create these columns, not for everything that we do, but for all of your most intimate relationships, events, and situations. If, for example, the way you're working out causes an emotional expense, or the way you're dieting causes an emotional expense, the emotional expense may be greater than the actual outcome or the purpose of what you're doing. And so many people don't utilize or analyze the actual interference between where they want to be or better the potential of that by understanding there's an emotional expense. But in order to facilitate and understand that, you've got to know your timing and risk tolerance, but you have to have some sort of estimate on what an hour is worth to you. And then equate that back to when you're interfering with that, how much money is it actually costing you? And then you can learn to prioritize what's important to you in the relativity of the person, place, thing, situation, the association you have to it, which includes the meaning and relativity. And then, of course, the actual feeding that occurs from that person, place, thing, situation, or event versus the emotional expense of interfering with that. It's a great analysis, not to be used with everything in your life, but the most prominent things in your life that you spend the most time with. It's definitely worth understanding that emotional expense column. Nika Wam, who's up next?
Happy halftime, everybody. And as we transition over to the second half, just a reminder and a quick reset of the room. Today's, topic is the takeaway of the month. So whether you are joining us online, of course, as we are live everywhere, please go ahead and put your takeaways of the month in the chat. And if you are live here on the Breakfast with Champions, the best room and community in Clubhouse, please make sure that if you are on stage, just put a quick note in the chat and I will be happy to pass the mic your way. And of course, if you are in the audience, please use the hand icon in the lower right-hand corner of the screen to request to join the stage, and we will be happy to bring you up. Now, with that said, for our next takeaway, I'm going to pass it over to our good friend Hatul, who's been patiently waiting. Hatul, it's been a little while, my friend. It's great to see you. Feel free to unmute yourself and share that takeaway.
Good morning, everyone. Here's wishing you all the very best June ever. Honored and blessed and always to be in this community. Two takeaways. The first one is pause. The words that came to me, I'm just reading some notes I made, is that the silence is where the magic is, and the heart, mind, and soul thrive on and through silence. And this links to something that's, I think I may have shared in another takeaway of the month, is less words, more meaning. I think I look back at myself and blessed to have unlearned and grown is my understanding of my progress. And definitely I had to have the last word, need to feel validated. And now I'm, with God's grace, getting out of the way more. So a few link things there, perhaps. And the second one is to not force. Sorry if you can hear kids playing in the background. Not my kids. Is not to force things. And I've found I'm doing this more to my benefit. And where I get friction or resistance, There's something I'm trying to do actually today, and I keep getting resistance, and I put it down. So when it feels like metal grinding against metal, which is very unlike Nick, you, our well-oiled machine, stop revving the engine, and perfect way to hand over to David is to stop, drop, and roll. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing, Atul, and thank you so much for sharing the idea of the pause of silence. And I study the Tao every day. There's 81 verses of the Tao. The Tao means the way. I study it through Dr. Wayne Dyer, whose actual name means light the way. And so understanding the Tao, the way, is understanding that there's both silence and activity. And they work hand in hand. And I think sometimes there's a misnomer, misunderstanding of silence, that I don't believe it's in your best interest in the human experience to go up into the Ganja Mountains and meditate for 6 years. I just think that type of activity is better suited for the infinite, not the human experience. I do think that silence is necessary a minimum amount of time every day. So whether that be meditation or other forms of meditation, vacationing, activities, movement, balance, stretching, reading, listening, all of these different activities are within the context of the Tao, in the context of silence. It is much easier to receive when you're silent. And unfortunately, human nature doesn't like to receive. They feel bad, whatever reason it is. Human nature feels bad when they receive. They don't realize how much they're cheating other people. And I'm not just talking in the silent sense, I'm talking in the actual infinite loop of giving sense. That if we can reconstruct our energy and remind ourselves, stop cheating people. And the whole aspect of one of my favorite quotes and my favorite lessons of being more interested than interesting. You cannot be interested unless you're silent. And so if we can equate silence as receiving, and we can align it with being more interested than interesting, which aligns with what? Doing our best, learning lessons, and having fun. But I think we have to acknowledge that in order to create the infinite loop, whether it's within the context of giving, learning, or making money, we need to have a great harmony in our lives, the yin and the yang, the Tao itself, the simplicity of making sure that we are appropriately silent when it's prioritized over giving or being interesting or educating or motivating or inspiring or teaching or mentoring or coaching. There has to be a yin and a yang. There has to be a harmony in that silence. And so as we read these historical texts that are aligned with human nature, we have to realize that there's a timing and risk tolerance to silence itself. And I think the easiest lesson to put within your takeaway of May is that the timing of silence is as important as being silent. And if you were silent all the time, you're going to be missing out and cheating others. But if you are talking all the time and active all the time and giving all the time, you are cheating others as well. Nothing will make other people feel better than when they're capable of helping you. And in order for them to be capable and feel capable of helping you, you need to receive that help, whether it be the information that they're disseminating to you, whether it be money, whether it be opening a door, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you are facilitating this infinite loop of abundance, that more than enough of everything for everyone. And silence is absolutely part of that infinite loop. And I'm so happy that you elevated the awareness to the importance of silence, whether it be sleep, whether it be the reaction to fear in the stop, dropping, and rolling aspect, meditation, vacationing, movement, balance, stretching, whatever the periods of time, listening. They're all activities of silence. Being more interested than interesting, completing the infinite loop of abundance by being interesting some of the time and interested some of the time. What a great takeaway of May, Nick Avon. We got the best community in the house. We're so blessed to be here with thousands of people, members of our like Hatul and Aubrey and all these people that are here, Brian Swift, et cetera, that are members of our private group that continually make me look good by helping one another and knowing people to help one another. I'm here to help you, Nick of Guam. You're here to help me. So can you help me find our next takeaway of May?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. It's always a pleasure and honor to be here with you, my friend. And we have the Meltzer double up next with his takeaway of the month. And I mean that with no family affiliation. Of course, I'm talking about Eric Meltzer. Eric, always great to see you, my friend. We miss you. I hope to see you in person sometime soon on the Meltzer tour. But in the meantime, why don't you bless us with your takeaway of the month?
Eric Meltzer, unmute yourself.
I was going to say, I see him unmuted, but I couldn't hear him. Eric, if you want to try that one more time. Interesting. Okay, well, we are going to go ahead and pass it over. Let's see, we got Jackie G here, who's joining us, of course, I believe from the other side of the world. So, Jackie, thank you for always tuning in. Can you share your takeaway of the month with us? I'm over too. All right, we're going over to, we have Jolanta, who is patiently waiting. Can you go ahead and unmute yourself to share your takeaway of the month as well?
Yes, I can. Thanks so much. Hey, it's great to hear you, David, as always, on the stage. And I really liked when you talked about the expense. You mentioned about emotional expense and how many hours you really have to spend in the day. So I think my takeaway this month is about intentionality and where I'm spending my time, because like you mentioned, how are you going to ever get something done if you are kind of all over the place, or, not being able to be following some sort of, I use a timetable, or what do you call it? Not timetable, but I do use a calendar and I do use a scheduling tool, but I'm very intentional about where I'm spending my time. So I think, if you're always spending your energy, if you're not getting your workouts in, or how are you able to elevate yourself while you're still trying to figure out a way of, if you have a business, or if you don't have a business, or like where do you spend your energy, your money, those types of things. So that's kind of the season I'm in as well. So thanks so much, David, for sharing that. I think that's a really great an emotional expense. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to try that exercise myself. Back to you guys.
Awesome. Well, we certainly appreciate it, and understanding even the context of Napoleon Hill, the definiteness of purpose. And as we know, 98% of the people drift, and drifters make it possible for us to have a unique opportunity, especially when things aren't going well. Because when things are more difficult than easy, drifters quit, and it leaves the 2% to take advantage of an exponential opportunity and options. And with the definiteness of purpose of aligning it with our time, not just analyzing the emotional expense, but aligning the activities that are non-negotiable, non-circumstantial, hybrid negotiables, things that we want to do once a week, once a month, once a year. And of course, just plain negotiable behaviors that are circumstantial, that we need to utilize prioritization to be the antidote between us and our activities and feeling overwhelmed by too many activities, or procrastinating because we have too many options and opportunities and touches of favor. And so when we're looking at this intentionality, this definiteness of purpose, and we're prioritizing our time with non-negotiable, hybrid negotiable, negotiable behaviors, we start to understand a revelation. It starts revealing how best to be intentional. So we start analyzing, what are we doing? What are we saying? What are we thinking? What are we feeling? What are we believing? And if any of those different 5 levels of intention are not aligned, but yet interfering with where we want to be or better, we can then make those adjustments in the form of relativity or meaning. And so we, in essence, are never pivoting. We're just expanding and learning how to utilize what we do, say, think, feel, and believe. And the more aligned we are with what we do, say, think, feel, and believe in the activities of the incremental time that we're given every day, the 24 hours of the day, which, by the way, you're guaranteed within the human experience, the time your heart starts till the time it stops, we're guaranteed this 24 hours. Don't waste it. Don't waste the struggle. Don't waste the success. Don't waste the relationships. Don't waste the enjoyment of doing your best, learning lessons, and having fun. Don't waste the 24 hours that you're guaranteed every day, except for the last day of your life when you're cheated. And when you are cheated that last day, you will feel at ease. No resentment and no guilt, because you have analyzed under the context of your timing and risk tolerance, your intentionality, your definiteness of purpose of doing, saying, thinking, feeling, and believing certain things every single day that are most important to you. For me, it's the sleep, my family, my health, my finance, my faith, the study of time, and the study of meaning and relativity. I know those are non-negotiables. I call it the Michael Jordan rule. And this might be a good takeaway for May, at the end of May here, although Jackie, I think it might be June already in New Zealand. But more importantly, I digress. In understanding the Michael Jordan rule, it's a rule of prioritization. It's a rule of non-negotiable behavior. And I started to use it originally for other people. So I'm the king of invitation. Anyone that's in our community, in our text community, in our email community, anyone in our community knows they get more invitations from me than anyone else. Not obligations, invitations. But so many times people tell me, I can't go to the Firewalk. I can't meet you at Aspire. I can't meet you in Minnesota or the Web Summit in Vancouver. I can't meet you in Atlanta today at the Pivot Summit. I can't meet you. And what I like to do, just to give them the perspective of non-negotiable behavior, of prioritization, is I say to them, sorry you can't make it today to the Pivot Summit, but I'm blessed because Michael Jordan's going to be here with me. Now, I can tell you, if I told everybody Michael Jordan's going to be with me, everything would be oversold. People would fly in still and ask me what time Michael Jordan's going to be here. But before I told them Michael Jordan's here, it wasn't a non-negotiable, it wasn't a hybrid negotiable, it wasn't even a negotiable. It had no prioritization. But in the impact side of things, if you came to the Pivot Summit, what greater value would you get just because Michael Jordan was here? Do you think he would talk to you? Did I promise he would sign your autograph, take a picture of him? Did I say he was speaking? I just said Michael Jordan's going to be here. But yet just the fact that we now give a different meaning to things, even though we haven't analyzed it within the context of the timing and risk tolerance, the definiteness of purpose. So I use originally, just to let people negotiate their own prioritization, the Michael Jordan rule. Whatever it is you say no to, I'm like, oh, that's a shame because Michael Jordan's going to be here. And watch how they reprioritize it. Well, you should be doing the same thing with the Michael Jordan rule with what's important to you. So I know this is going to sound weird, but when I guarantee a non-negotiable of a minimum of 7 hours of sleep, and I don't prioritize that correctly, I use the Michael Jordan rule. I'm like, oh, Michael Jordan is going to be here. Michael Jordan's going to be in your sleep. All of a sudden it becomes more important. Michael Jordan's going to be with your son. Better spend time with my son. Michael Jordan's going to be with my family or my faith. Michael Jordan's going to be there with me. I better show up because my priorities change just because Michael Jordan's going to be there, even though Michael Jordan being there doesn't have any impact on the actual value of what's most important to me and should be non-negotiable, and also should have no impact on you as well. And so if you're committed to doing things that are most important to you, then use the Michael Jordan rule, and then call bullshit on your friends that don't show up because they don't think it's important. But if Michael Jordan was there, it's important. Doesn't make sense. All right, very good. I'm glad I got to share the Michael Jordan rule with everybody. It's one of my favorites. I'm a big Michael Jordan fan. For anyone, he's one of the great GOATs of the world. More importantly, remember, every Friday for over 26 years, our exercises, guides, and books will be sent out to you. Email me, David@Meltzer. We got a Friday training guide every Friday, every Wednesday. Get those from us. Join our private group. You'll get help from me personally on Mondays, help from the entire community every day, and get invited to over 200 different in-person events, meetings, holding courts, interviews, speeches, and VIP dinner series, as well as the virtual Monday opportunities and private networking that goes on every day. David@dmeltzer.com. Thank you, Ivan. I got a whole bunch of requests in here, so that just reminded me. Nick of Wam, we're in the fourth quarter, my favorite quarter. Hold up 4 fingers and tell me who has a takeaway for May.
Absolutely. We're going to give it another shot with the Meltzer double, Mr. Eric Meltzer. Eric, give us a try here. Unmute yourself. Check 1, 2, 3.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There we go.
Sweet. All right, thank you so much, Dave and Nick. So I have two takeaways from this month. The first is really taking my health to the next level, and that's just been in the form of increased much more exercise, spending a couple hours a day realistically at the gym, and eating in a way that gives me the full energy and has also improved my sleep. So it's not a sacrifice by avoiding all the processed junk, and it's actually much more nourishing to allow me to be in my full power. And then the second thing is I've really just come to place more emphasis on remembering the limited time I have to connect with the divine. And Dave, you've always talked about, every day we're guaranteed 24 hours except the last day. And I really just keep in mind the limited time and the precious time I have to connect with the divine through my meditation and spiritual practice. So, thank you.
It's so smart. And understanding that prioritization of health is a takeaway that happened later on in my life. I used to prioritize my family. Then I would make excuses that I was prioritizing my family by being excessive of intention on my finance. And I used to lie to myself and say, I'm doing this for my family. And so there was a horrible reprioritization in my life that was a facade by saying that I was prioritizing my family and prioritizing my family by prioritizing my finance. When in reality, that you can't give what you don't have. And until I rebounded from losing over $100 million and going bankrupt, when my wife, who is always my savior and my guide and a great teacher, mentor, and coach in my life, my unbelievable best choice of my life, told me when I asked her, what can I do for you? I know I put you through a lot of struggle and you've stuck with me and we are back. What can I do for you? And she said, take care of yourself. I know you want to take care of everybody else, but if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be here to take care of anybody else. And that broke the chain, the facade that so many people live within, which is I prioritize my family first. And because I prioritize my family first, I prioritize my finance first to help my family. And we go ahead and become wealthy, and then we use all that wealth to become healthy. I will promise you, when your mission is to be healthy, the wealth will follow. When you follow your mission, the commissions will follow. And so if you want to prioritize your family and your finance, then prioritize your health. And I'm so glad to hear that you are allotting and utilizing the time principles that we teach, and negotiables, non-negotiables, hybrid negotiables, and understanding the incremental use of 24 hours by having non-negotiable behavior that prioritizes your health, which then prioritizes your family, which then prioritizes your finance, which then prioritizes your faith, then also allows you to be more productive and gracious and accessible in the usage of time, because you are performing better because of the recovery and the access that health gives you, and so on and so forth, the infinite loop of abundant acceleration, compounding impact of simply taking care of yourself so you could take care of others. Glad to have my namesake, Eric Meltzer. Although we're not blood related, we are name related, and it's always good to see another Meltzer succeeding. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Awesome, brother. We got more than enough of everything for everyone. David at dmeltzer.com. Nick Avlam, this has been the takeaway of May. Go ahead, close out the room.
Absolutely. And
thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. You can also get our text community, put it up there, 949-298-2905. Remember, if you don't want to be invited to shit, do not text. If you are offended or obligated when you get invited and you don't like to evoke the Michael Jordan rule, then don't text me. But if you do, 949-298-2905 is how you join us. Email me if you want the guys' exercises, my book. I sign them, send it to you, pay for shipping in the book. Come and join us in Atlanta, in Macklemore Golf Club. Come join us in Nashville. Come join us in Orlando. Meetups, holding court, speeches, interviews in our VIP dinner series. Then it looks like we're going to be in LA and Anaheim. They started adding those in there. I can't think past Orlando right now because it's been quite a road tour that I'm on. Remember, David at dmeltzer.com. You're invited, not obligated. Remember, most importantly, be more interested than interesting. Be kind to your future self and do good deeds.